Well, it finally happened. I woke up one day and I hated Frontiers. The night before, I'd been working on feature and I basically rage quit. I was so frustrated. And the next day, I woke up, went downstairs, launched the project, and this sinking feeling of hatred just hit me like a wave. And I thought, I can't deal with this today. And I shut it off. I'm no stranger to project hate. It hits the best of us. Um, it hit me all the time in VFX, and sometimes you're just having a bad day, and you come back to it in a couple days, and you feel fine. In this case, I didn't feel fine in a couple of days. I actually felt maybe even a little worse. At that point, Euclidean was getting ready to launch, so I hopped on board that project for about 10 days full time. That helped me sort of, cleanse my palate. And I thought, okay, when I'm done with Euclidean, I'll hop back onto Frontiers. I'll be refreshed, I'll be renewed, and I'll be ready to move forward again. So Euclidean released, I hopped back onto Frontiers, and I felt even worse. At this point, I started to feel alarmed, honestly. Project hate usually doesn't last that long. Uh, and if it does, it could mean I'm like terminally burnt out on the project, which would be bad. It was also around this time I started recording the next video update, but I hadn't really decided what I was going to say. I was just kind of talking about Act 3 and how that was going, and I ended up catching a cold, and I had to put the video update on hold while my voice recovered. And I think that was a good thing, because when I came back to the footage after that was all over, I decided, okay, this is weird. I'm talking about this project like I'm not facing this major issue. Instead, I'm going to address the issue head on, and that's what this video update is going to be about. I'm going to talk about where this feeling came from. I'm going to try and get to the bottom of it, and through that process, I'm going to see if I can reverse it. Well, I definitely got to the bottom of what was bugging me and making me feel that hatred, and I was largely successful in reversing the hatred. I don't feel that way anymore when I'm working on the project. It's more of a dull ache. Not totally gone, but definitely manageable. All right, it's kind of a depressing update. I'm going to use a lot of peppy music to keep our spirits up, and I hope you'll stick with it through the whole series, because it's going to get a little weird in the middle, but it's going to come back around to normal by the end. Don't say I didn't warn you. We all knew the risks of a project going this far over schedule. We all knew that someday something, probably something mundane, was going to finally get under my skin and make me crazy, and it turned out to be elevators. Now, if I were to start an FPS project right now from scratch, I could have an elevator made in an hour. In 2 hours, it would be robust. They're not that hard. In Frontiers, I've been working on an elevator for 3 weeks. I set out to add one to the tower, and I expected to blaze through it, of course, but I ran into trouble immediately. With this elevator, if it didn't work right, you'd fall through it and die. It made testing Act 3 very difficult. Over and over, it was the same damn thing. I would get the elevator working, and then I would go to test it and find that something else had broken because of what I had changed to get the elevator working. For instance, one night everything seemed to be working brilliantly. I took the elevator up to a high spot, got out my glider, and now a change I made to get the elevator functioning has made me float above my glider instead of being in it. That was actually the thing that made me rage quit. At one point I said, screw this, let's get creative. I'm going to do stairs instead. But then I did the math and realized that even an abstract staircase equivalent to the function of this elevator would be triple my polygon budget. So that was out. But then I thought, aha, well, maybe I don't need to, have an actual platform. It'll just be sort of like a System Shock 2 elevator where you step in and it elevates you. But then, of course, I realized that's going to completely nuke the locking mechanism that's a huge part of the third act story. Everywhere you turn, you're locked in by the past. I didn't even see the game anymore. It was like the reverse of the Matrix, where instead of blonde, brunette, redhead, all I saw was code, code, code. You get the idea. frustrating. But as frustrating as it was no more frustrating than any of the other things I dealt with. I mean, this whole project has been frustration after frustration. That's what projects are. You start at one end and you solve problems till you get to the other. So it doesn't really explain why this was the thing that made me lose my shit. In my experience, when you have sort of a sudden change of heart like this, what it means is that you've learned something new. You've leapt to a conclusion, not necessarily a wrong conclusion. Your subconscious has figured something out, and you've formed a new opinion, and you just don't understand the basis of that opinion. And so now you have to sort of go back and sort of forensically deconstruct what happened, figure out what it is you've now learned, and evaluate whether or not that's rational or not. I mean, it's weird that that's necessary, but that's brains for you. So that's what I'm doing in the next couple of videos. I'm sort of going back and figuring out what I figured out that made me so despondent. I'm attaching vocabulary to it so that I can talk about it and think about it clearly. Because when you can't think about something, when you can't sort of talk to yourself about something, you can't problem solve it. You can't investigate it and approach it rationally. You only have the irrational response of "F this." So that's the question we're trying to answer right now. Why did this elevator piss me off so much, and what can I do about it? It may seem like I'm going left and right and nowhere near center, but it's all going to be necessary information to understand the conclusions that I reached. I have a feeling the first video is going to get X number of views and the next one's going to drop off and drop off. I'm probably going to lose all of you by the end, but whatever, I hope you stick with it.